this is Melanie of Pardesi Reviews, and I'm here to discuss Kandukondain Kandukondain, the Tamil classic, with Alisa Rivera. Thanks, Alisa, for coming back again. So she had asked me to suggest some South Indian films, and I don't know, I just was listening to some of the music from this film, and I just wanted to watch it again. And I thought, well, I'll tell you about it. And it has such a cast. We have Mammootty, one of the big stars of Malayalam cinema, as Major Bala, or the Colonel Brandon character, because this is a remake of Sense and Sensibility. We have Ajith, when he was just on kind of the cusp of superstardom. Tabu and Aishwarya Rai, two actresses that we're more used to seeing in Hindi cinema. Here they were dubbed by other artists. To be honest with you, I cannot remember who dubbed Ashwairya, but Tabu's part was dubbed by another famous Tamil actress, Ravi K, who, she is famous for Tamil and Malayalam films. Have you ever seen Two States?
No, I've heard of it.
Okay, so she has been in some Hindi films. She played the mother in that Hindi film, but she is in one of my favorite Malayalam films opposite Mohanlal called Devasuram. So anyway, they didn't just get anybody, they got a big actress to dub Tabu's part. So what was your initial reaction when I told you just the cast? You were just like, wow.
I was really blown away, yeah, like you said, just from the cast alone. And then when it was a remake of Sense and Sensibility, which is, I love Jane Austen. I'm very familiar with the story. I've read the book several times, and I know the film really well. So I was excited because, I've seen other Indian in other industries remakes of English classics. It's always super interesting to see how they adapt it.
Yes.
And to cut to the chase, I love this movie. I absolutely loved it. I loved it so much that after I watched it the first time, I immediately started watching it again. I've watched it 3 times since you told me about it. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Because and I never do that because I don't have time. Like you've seen my family, so you know what my family life is like. I'm constantly getting interrupted. I never do that. But it was just amazing. And I actually like it better than the original film, and I actually think it's better written. So
Whoa,
we can get into
these
that.
are fighting words.
I know. And the music is unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal. The music is everything. I loved everything. Honestly, I loved everything about the movie. We can get into the details and contrasting it with, because like the Emma Thompson, Hugh Grant movie is considered to be the ultimate telling of the story,
right? And she won it. And she won. Yeah, Emma Thompson wrote the screenplay.
Right.
That film was directed actually by Ang Lee, and was kind of one of his first mainstream films that really made it big. But Emma Thompson famously won the Oscar for the screenplay. Right. And I rewatched that film this week as well, just to kind of have it fresh in my mind. I've seen the Emma Thompson film at least a dozen times, and I was tweeting about the scene at the end when Hugh Grant comes back and she finds out he wasn't married and that they could possibly be happy, and she breaks down and sobs. I'm like, it doesn't matter how many times I've seen this film, I'm crying. And similar scenes in this film, I tear up as well. It just it's one of those films that really has the emotional impact. You get so deep into these characters and you want their happiness and you're so invested in that. And wow, just the emotional, the character growth, I think, in this one is maybe even better. I mean, for both multiple characters, whereas I will agree, like the Emma Thompson one, it's mainly just the sisters, but I feel like we're seeing a lot of character growth in the men characters in this Indian film. And I do think it just the setting of arranged marriages and the family houses and people having, the problem of inheritance and who gets the family home and all of that, that puts these women in poverty the same way in the English, the original Jane Austen. I think it's one of those things that just translates so well. So many things about it translate so well to the Indian setting. And just this cast is just amazing. And, so this director, so this is Rajiv Menon, is the director who has often been a cinematographer himself for Manivannan, who you haven't seen a Manivannan film yet, but we'll work on that. But
okay.
And then the music is A.R. Rahman. So, but this director, Rajiv Menon, he's native of Kerala. So he wrote it in Malayalam, and then he had someone else helping him with the dialogues to translate them into Tamil, essentially. So the other person listed on the screenplay is Sujata Rangarajan. And then the cinematographer, though, of this is a famous cinematographer, Ravi K. Chandran, who has done a lot of big Indian films. For instance, Gajini, the Amir Khan film.
Oh, okay.
Fana, he also was a cinematographer for that. Oh. So he has worked in multiple industries. So it's just like this, and with the A.R. Rahman music, I mean, it's like this incredible gathering of talent in one film, both behind the camera and in front of the camera.
And it really shows, the cinematography is amazing. And I was thinking about this because with A.R. Rahman or Rahman, I don't know how you pronounce his name, but he there's something about his music that I'm not sure. Does it inspire the filmmakers and the cinematographers, or do the cinematographers and filmmakers do something and then he comes up with the music? And I don't know the process, but there always seems to be this vast sweep to the songs, like
yes.
Which I can't pronounce the name, but the song in the in Egypt with Ajith and Tabu, which is amazing, and I cannot get it out of my head. I keep singing. I can't sing Tamil, but I keep thinking about the melody in my head. But then you have like so many other songs, like the very first song that Ashwairya sings when she's dreaming about her love, and that's a gorgeous song. And again, there's a sweep to it and the way it's filmed and choreographed. And didn't Farah Khan choreographed this?
She might have.
I think she did. So yeah, the level of talent behind the camera definitely shows in this film, just in terms of like filmmaking, how they block the scenes, what they're showing, how it's lit, with the sets, like where the action takes place. It's just it's really good. And the writing is so interesting to me about the translations, because here's the other thing. I watched the movie 3 times, and the first time I saw it was on Einthusen, which is a little shady website.
Yeah, I know. But really beggars can't be choosers website.
But they had a really clean print, so it looked gorgeous, but the subtitles weren't good. But then I found a version of it on YouTube that looked like crap, but it had amazingly much better subtitles. And that's where the poetry of the language really started to come out. And I was looking at the subtitles, and 2 things. One is like, wow, good subtitles really make a difference to a film. But also just like thinking about what it was like to take the poetry that was probably present in the Malayalam and then translating that into the Tamil and having it still be effective on screen is amazing. All of it was amazing. I mean, I don't know where you want to start, like the performances. Tabu is just beyond amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes a magic of a film is in the casting, right? I mean, just from the beginning, even before they start acting, just the chemistry between different people, and thinking about Tabu. I mean, she has played all different kind of characters, but I agree. In this one, she's so amazing. She's playing the Eleanor Emma Thompson kind of character that's reserved, holding herself in, trying. But Tabu is so great that you can see that she wants to be emotional, but she's the older sister and she feels like the weight of the world is on her, and
And
she
it
just
is.
and it is because I mean there's that scene where she's going from business to business trying to save her family by finding a job, and then I just think Ashwairya, this is a film, even though it's Revati's voice that we're hearing, we're seeing all the expression in Aishwarya's eyes, and we're seeing this character arc. I think this is one of the films that really showcases that, yes, she does have range. She's not just a pretty face. She's not just a great dancer, because she goes from this, selfish, immature young girl who literally is living kind of in a fantasy world. The title track, she's imagining, we haven't even talked about the actor Abbas, who played, her boyfriend, the Willoughby character, and who's a little bit, I loved how they made his shadiness, instead of that he had ruined a young woman, that it was a financial ruin that he was inflicting on a lot of people, and the only way to save his business was by getting married to a rich girl.
Right.
And so, but anyway, I mean, she even literally dreams of him as a prince, because they filmed at Island Dunham Castle in Scotland, which I have been to, and I was like, when I was watching it, I'm like, I have been on that bridge, on that boat. And yeah, I mean, it was so great. Like, he's coming up on the boat, and he's got his sword, and that's her vision of him. This is my shining prince. And so she's just living in this fantasy world, and then when she crashes down, oh my gosh! But it just she
like a literal crash.
A literal crash.
One of the things I love about this is one of the reasons why I like this version better than even Jane Austen's book. And this is not like, I mean, Jane Austen was writing about an era where women literally had no agency in that social class. The only thing they could do to better themselves was to get married. They had no other options. They couldn't get a job. And there was a passivity to the characters, except for Marianne. And Marianne is the one who goes after what she wants, and it turns out to be a disaster. And Eleanor is the one who waits and doesn't do anything, and she gets what she wants first, right? And then, in my opinion, the Colonel Brandon story doesn't really work for me because it feels like a consolation prize. It really doesn't feel like she made that choice. If she doesn't feel like she's really in love with him. It's basically like she's kind of ruined her reputation because of the disastrous relationship with Willoughby, and now she's lucky that Colonel Brandon still wants to marry her despite that.
I mean, Alan Rickman sells it, but still, it is this very young girl and this older man. And we have that again with Mammootty, I believe, was almost 50 when this was filmed. And then Ashwairya was probably in her late 20s. So it's similar to what the characters are supposed to be. But I mean...
Yeah, to me, like, so for example, and this applies to both characters, like Tabu is, when the family has their disaster, they have their financial disaster, they're thrown out of the house, they have no money. She goes out and she gets a job and she's smart. So like she gets this job as a receptionist because she has to take whatever she can get. Yeah. And she's so good at what she does and helpful, and she impresses everybody. And I thought her boss was going to end up sexually harassing her, and I was totally off base, right? Yeah, that's what I thought was going to happen. But instead, he was like recognized, oh, she's really smart, and he promotes her. And he promotes her so much that he's willing to send her to America and help her get her green card. And he also helps her get a home loan. Yeah. So that she can, as she buys a house or an apartment, I guess, but she buys a home for her family. So her arc is incredible. I mean, she was already at the beginning of the story, the more mature sister, but then, being able to go, well, I may be unlucky in love, but I have family responsibilities and I have to do this for my family. And she does it. And and you can see what a impressive person she is, and I really love that. The women are more empowered in this. And then with Ashwarya, she starts out very naive, very girlish. She has this like ridiculous fantasy about what love is like. And then Bala comes along, and I love Bala. I love Bala better than Colonel Brandon because I love they have really good chemistry, don't you think? Mammootty
I
and
do.
Aishwarya, and they had this and it's partly the writing. They had this bantering relationship, and
Right.
she was sassy, and then he'd sass her back, and then there's that great scene where she's scared. I think she's scared to go to a job or audition, and he
Right.
starts to say, "Oh, well, she's probably scared to like sing in front of those people. Or she's probably scared to get in the cab by herself or whatever, And then she's like, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not." And then she runs out and does it, and he's like laughing because he actually likes that about her. Like, and then that contrasts with the scene where she thinks she's in love with Shrikant, or gets played by Abbas, who plays the Willoughby character, and then she proves him wrong. He quotes a poet and then gets the name wrong, and she proves that he's wrong, and he gets really offended and storms off.
Yeah.
And he's got a very fragile ego. So you've got this really nice dynamic set up where by the time you get to the end of the story and she chooses Bala, it's completely credible.
Yes.
You believe it, and you
Yeah.
believe and you understand it, like why she falls in love with him. And the
Right.
scene, and she proposes to him,
I know that
which
scene.
is
Oh my
awesome.
God, it's so
That scene is so good. That scene is so good. And the way I love that. Oh my God, that scene. So it's
He's
so
like
well.
he's plastering himself against the
Yeah,
wall. Like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, it's not happening. I can't accept this love. Like, oh
Yeah.
God.
Well, and I love that she had a viable suitor that she rejects, because then it takes away the problem I have with the book and the original movie, which is that Marianne does not have another suitor.
Right.
She's kind of in a desperate situation when she ends up with Colonel Brandon. But in this film, Ashwarya, there's a young, handsome guy from a respectable family. It would have been a totally appropriate match for her.
Also,
And
she
she's
has
like,
developed
"Nope."
her own career, which Bala
Right.
helped get her some classes and things to develop her
Right.
musical talent.
Right.
Um,
Right. Yeah, he helps her like to pursue her passion.
Right, but she didn't necessarily have to marry, because she was taking off that her music was selling. She was going to be
Right.
offered films,
Right.
so there wasn't a desperation of having to marry. It's just he was trying to do the right thing of
Right.
let me set her up with this really handsome guy that from my soldier days, and I'll just have to hide my love away and just do the best thing for her.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "No, I'm not having it. I'm
Yeah,
having
she
you.
was like,
I want you." Oh, God.
Yeah, and then I love that they have him go, shut up, as she's proposing to him. It was so
I
good
know.
because he says to her, "Don't confuse pity with love," and
Yeah.
she's like, "Nope, that's not what this is. It's not pity." She goes, and
Yeah, I mean,
and then
you're right.
she- and then- and then-
He goes through this whole arc too, because the
Yeah.
back talk from the beginning, he's a drunk.
right,
And the
Right.
very first time she sees him is where he's tripped over his artificial leg, which comes off, and he falls right at the end of her dance and humiliates himself. And she's just kind of like, "Stop drinking, and then I'll talk to you." So he's trying to be a better man for her, and Colonel Brandon and Sensibility does not have that arc. He's just always steadfast and always good,
Right.
and there to help, but he's not going through his own arc like that, where he's trying to make himself a better man for the Marianne character. So yeah, that's what I love, is they both become better, and then they come together.
Right.
That amazing
Right.
scene. I love it.
Oh, that scene is so good. Oh my God, it's so good. It's so heart-wrenching. And he's taking his hands, and he wants
I
to
know.
cup her face, but he can't bring himself to do it. And then she grabs him, and I'm
I
like,
know.
oh, it's so
I
good. It's all great. Like even before that, when she almost dies, she falls into a sewer. She's a great, and he, pulls her out, and she's in the hospital, and then she starts to wake up, and he says to her, "When I was in the jungle, I didn't pray. When I had lost my leg, I didn't pray, but for you, I'll pray."
Yeah.
And then you see the light dawn on her, like, oh, wait a minute. This is a worthwhile person. This is actually somebody
and she hears
who cares
from the
about
nurse
me.
that he was there all night with her.
Even
if the nurse had fallen asleep, that he was watching over her. I'd be like, oh.
I know, it's so romantic. And but what I also love is that that's not their last scene together. Like, they have a scene after that, and it's part of the scene that brings Ajith and Tabu together finally. But
they're just sharing a little look, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have to take the luggage back now,
Yeah. Well, but also that they're bickering, like, He's like, I'm going to take the luggage. She goes, I'm going to help you. No, you're not. Yes, I am. I'm helping you. And they're kind of like going back and forth, and it's so charming. And it's sort of like, that's their relationship, and they can sass each other, and they're on an equal footing that way, even though he's so much older than her. But it does not come across as creepy. And it could come across as creepy with that kind of age difference. But they pull it off. They make it non-creepy, which I really appreciate it.
Well, I think Mammootty also, as an actor, it's never said how old he is, but I think he's handsome enough that he could have played like lower 40s, even though, I was looking up, I was kind of curious, how old was he when he made this? But, it just doesn't seem out of bounds. It doesn't, the Alan Rickman character, I remember having silver in his hair and everything, and definitely point of looking very much older than Kate Winslet. But, okay, so that's what's fantastic about this film, is that we don't just have one great romance, we have two.
Yes.
And Ajith.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. So this film was made, and I think while it was in post-production, I think one or two of his other films came out, so he became kind of this big star, and then this film really cemented it. Although I think some of his fans really kind of have issue with this film, because he's not just like, the sole male lead, it's all his film, if you understand what I'm saying. It's not a star, because most of his films now are complete star vehicles for him. And this is an ensemble piece, and so, but I think it's great because he goes through so much in this film. He's so romantic. He's so, gosh. And the director himself has said that I think Ajith's character is a little bit like his struggle in his early days to make, I loved all the things of, like, he'd gone to America to study, he wants to make a traditional suspense film, doesn't want to put the songs in. I was just laughing,
Yeah, a lot of the jokes about the film industry, like Bala's friend or brother, I wasn't clear on their relationship, but he's like, do you have a village council scene, Right. And they're like, no, we don't have that in this movie. What kind of Tamil film doesn't have a village council scene in the house, Right. Like all these little jokes. And I loved, actually, I guess it was a cameo appearance by the Hindi actress who plays the action heroine in his movie, which is another thing about this movie that made it more, I think you can actually say this is like almost a feminist retelling of the story, because they tell him, well, if you want to make the movie, she's looking for a vehicle, and he goes, well, I wrote it for a man, and they're like, well, she doesn't care, she does action movies, and so he does it, and he directs this movie, and she plays an action hero in it, and it's a big hit. And there's so many levels there, like, first of all, that he was willing to do it. Second of all, their relationship on the set, how they work together, because they show that in the film.
Right, but also that the paparazzi are kind of hyping that there must be a romantic attachment or whatever, and that's what sends Tabu into a spiral and makes her think she has to go to America, because she's reading the gossip rags, and how does she, as an outsider, not know that this is all just hype or somebody trying to make a news item, that it wasn't real.
And you have that great song where he's imagining Tabu instead of the other actress. And then when the other actress pops in, he's like startled, like, oh, wait, you're not the one I'm actually singing this to. Like, I'm singing this to her. So,
how he had to compromise, because he had gotten this big action star to read a script first, and then didn't want to compromise. I was kind of being shafted a little bit by that producer. Like, yeah, I'm giving you money, but no, it's not going to be your friends editing and whatever. It's going to be this, really old guy editing it. And he's like, what am I going to do? Well, you just sit here. Basically, like, you do the interviews. You don't do anything. And so he blows up, and then he has to kind of crawl back after his parents see him helping to film a wedding. He has to kind of crawl back and then, like you say, do this film with this female star, but make all the compromises. Before, he didn't want to have any songs. Now he's got 6 songs, and not only that, but that commercial, I think it's Smile something, like it's a very commercial song, and he's having to make but to get his film made, it showed all the things that he had to do to finally do that, and then he's a success. But also, he never feels like he doesn't have anything to offer someone to be married until he has had success. Like, I don't think Tabu would have cared, but for his pride, I have to have at least one film before I can come and ask you to marry me. And she just kind of is to the point of giving up. Like, okay, he's with this other, assuming it's true that he's with the actress and all of that. So yeah, I loved all of that kind of behind, play within a play kind of a thing, movie within a movie.
Yeah. And, and it's another change I think is better, because in the original, in the book and in the film, the character played by Hugh Grant, Edward, is a passive character.
Yeah.
Things just seem to happen to him. First of all, he doesn't have a job. It's a joke in the, does he have a profession? No, he's a gentleman, so he doesn't do anything. And, he's completely dependent on his family for money, and, he gets cut off, and then he doesn't have enough money to marry Eleanor, and, he has to be given a position by Colonel Brandon in order. Colonel Brandon is like this fairy godfather who sweeps in and fixes everybody's problems, which is kind of problematic for the narrative, because then the characters themselves are not the ones who are driving the resolution, right? From a writing point of view. So, but this film fixes that, because like Ajith, first of all, he comes from a wealthy family, chooses not to pursue engineering. He has an engineering degree from America. I like how they always say, you went to school in America, and they never named the school. But he went to school in America, got his engineering degree, but then he said, no, I'm going to be a filmmaker. First, his parents try to stop him, but then they try to bribe him. They're like, okay, we're going to finance your film, but you have to spend some time in the office with the family business. And he says no.
Right, and you have to meet this girl that we want you to meet. Right.
And we're going to set you up with a girl. And he's like, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm going to make this happen on my own. And he goes through all of the, it's interesting because you're saying he made compromises on the film, but the way I saw it was like the first time he tries to make the film, it's like everybody else is making choices for him. With the second time, even though he had to change things about his original vision, he was still driving the film.
Yes.
So that was like his film. It belonged to him. It didn't belong to somebody else. And so I like that. I mean, and I actually think it was a nice parallel to Tabu's character, because Tabu's character also, not for reasons of pride, just for reasons of we have to eat, right? But she actually is really good at what she does. And, through her hard work and brains and professionalism, makes things happen and buys a home for her family. So like the two of them are sort of on parallel tracks in terms of being similar people. Yeah. And he admires her for it.
Right.
Which is when
because she has this superstition that an astrologer has said that she's unlucky. And that has been, I guess, her whole life. It sounds like people have been telling her that. And so she internalizes that everything that's happened to their family, their financial ruin, all of that is her fault. Which obviously it is not. But that's just part, it, the director said it was partially, someone who believes in destiny, and someone, Marianne character, who is just making things happen for herself,
Right.
But although living in a dream world. But I mean, just, you have someone who just feels like, okay, this is fate, but yet Tabu does all these things to change her fate, right? But then at the end, she still feels like, because she had picked the title of the film that he was going to initially make, and then he chooses a different title, and now he's successful, that again, it's her bad luck. It's her astrological unluckiness that would curse him, and so therefore she can't be with him. But yet when she just sees him, she just like, and he says, "Will you marry me?" Like, he's just kind of like, what is happening? He's pounding on the door, like he's like, "No, I want," and he's just kind of like, "Okay, I give up." But then he walks out and he looks up to her and he just says, "Will you marry me?" And she just, yes, like she could just,
I know. And when he's at the door, like, she's like, "I'm unlucky. Like, I don't want you to have my bad luck." And he goes, "You have a career. You're going to America. You bought a home for your family. What do you mean you have bad luck? That's not bad luck, And actually, that's kind of a little bit of a theme in the movie, because, like, initially the way it starts out is that she keeps getting rejected for matches because her first match committed suicide because he was in love with another girl. Yeah. And so that was part of the bad luck too. And her mother's always going on about, what your horoscope is bad. And so, but Ajith doesn't care. Ajith never thinks twice about it.
Right.
And,
exactly.
And then Bala also was like, I don't care about any of that stuff. I don't believe in, praying or luck or whatever, it's an interesting, it's kind of like the film kind of rejects the whole idea of destiny or mysticism, it's just more about, what do you do? What do you do to take ownership of your life? What do you do to fulfill your dreams in a realistic way? In a grounded way, not like, fantasy world in a castle with a prince, but, in the real world, how do we achieve our dreams, and our love? What does it mean to actually be in love in the real world? So it's great. I loved it. It was amazing.
I mean, there's even just small scenes that, again, I appreciate how it ties some loose ends that we don't have in the original Sense and Sensibility, and that is they're caring for the elderly, Tabu and Ashwarya's grandfather, and he keeps trying to point to the box where the will is, wanting to revise the will because this is the part of the family that's taking care of him when he's had his stroke, or I assume, or whatever it is. And he knows that the old will leaves them nothing because, again, she married the wrong person, and so he had cut her out of his life. But yet, when he was in ill health, this is who came back to take care of him. Right. And that the selfish sister-in-law basically kicks them out with no money, similar to Sense and Sensibility. Right. But yet there's a resolution because when her husband, so Tabu and Ashwarya's mother's brother dies, and they come back, and then like they would give the rightful family back the house, and they're like, no, it's okay. If you don't want it, give it to an orphanage. But we're good. We're good now. Right.
Because
there's a reconciliation.
Yeah. Right. There's a reconciliation, but also it's a rejection of this idea of destiny. No, we don't want the ancestral home, because we've moved beyond that.
Yeah, we have our own home that we bought ourselves.
Right. And that it was this family of women. I mean, even the mother, even though it's out of desperation. But when Bala is eating and he recognizes the dish because it's so unique, and he goes in the kitchen and the mother's cooking, and
at the restaurant,
in the restaurant, right? And it's such a great scene because, first of all, they were doing, it was like, we got to survive, we have to work, we have to eat, we're gonna do whatever it takes to keep our family going. Yeah. But she also had a special talent. She had such a unique talent with cooking that somebody who had only tasted her cooking once was able to taste it again and would go, wait a minute, I only know one person who makes this.
Yeah.
And recognize, and then he's like, why didn't you come to me for help? And it's because, well, no, the women they didn't want to be dependent on even someone as nice as Bala,
Right.
you know, as kind as Bala. They didn't want to be dependent on him. And so when he does help them, the way he does it is he gets Ashwairya a job. He helps her find I guess it's at a music school. It wasn't 100% clear on what was going there.
It wasn't clear if he introduced her to being able to go to college there, a music college. If she was attending, to me it seemed like she was attending classes.
Maybe that's what it was.
That's a mirror of the Sense and Sensibility. Colonel Brandon gives Marianne a piano,
right?
And so again, there's that theme of music. But in this story, he gives her a classical instrument, which I don't remember the name of, earlier in the film, earlier in the plot. And it's sort of his, you have a talent, you need to learn how to do it properly, the classical way.
Right.
And so that was kind of, part of it is giving her the gift of learning. So it wasn't clear if he was paying for classes or just introducing her to maybe a master singer or something that she could absorb the learning from. I don't completely know. But that just leads to everything. And then he's so proud of her with the scene when he's in the store and sees the CDs.
So cute. I know, he's holding CDs. Like, God, yeah. I know her. Yeah, that was adorable.
But I love that she has that scene where she has to sing the song and she's just been crushed. And she has that professionalism. Like, she faints, and then she's like, no, I can sing it.
Yeah.
But whereas the Marianne character in Sensibility, right? You can't really imagine that scene in the original Sense and Sensibility of the Marianne character crumples in the rain, has the fever. But this one, after she's crushed, she has the gumption and then pours her heart and soul out in that music, which then is what makes her get that breakthrough of fame, because she put so much of herself into singing the song that's what so in essence the breakup was of a benefit to her. But I mean, like that scene where she's just, the tears are flowing down and she's singing the beautiful music.
Oh yeah, there's so many just gorgeous little set pieces in the film. And I also noticed, because I think A.R. Rahman writes the background score as well. So I noticed certain echoes of songs and thematic music in certain scenes. Like the proposal scene at the end with Ajith and Tabu, you're hearing echoes of their song, the Egyptian song again. And that just adds to it too, where you have that their theme, the love themes popping up at different moments for different things. And so that's just adds to their rich tapestry. But yeah, A.R. Rahman music, it's just amazing.
whole other level. And I listened to this, especially those two songs that the translation is "Why This Hide and Seek." I can't pronounce, but the one where Ashwairya is dancing kind of the classical dance, and Tabu and Ajith are, I love that one, and the Ajith and Tabu love song. Oh my gosh, I just listen to them over and over and over again.
It's so good. And, it's so funny because my husband kind of peeks in on things that I'm watching. He rarely sits down and watches the whole thing with me. But first of all, he was like, is Tabu supposed to be the plainer sister? Because I don't think so. Which was hilarious. And I was like, yeah, that's true. And he was just like completely captivated by that song. He was like, wow, that's really sexy. I'm like, yeah, it is. There's nothing overt in it, obviously, but just their chemistry and the way they're interacting. And then when I read the good translation of the lyrics, it's wow.
Yeah.
It's so poetic and gorgeous.
I liked how there was different styles, because like the catchy tune that's in the movie within the movie, the Smile song, like it's a
Right.
it's a bop, right? But yet
Right.
it's so different in style from the other music. Like each song is fits the moment. It's not like all the same.
Yes.
And there's certain
No.
films where every song is the same, and like people don't have that versatility. Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, and the other films, well, the big one, of course, is Lagan is the other score that, but and even though it's different, but I was thinking about, again, that sweep and that majesty that he can bring to songs, and it just kind of the music swelling up. Oh, and the other thing that reminded me, he did Chalacheya, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chalacheya, Cheya, Cheya, Cheya. Yeah,
so that's part of the film Dil Se, which I'm not recommending as quarantine viewing because it's very dark, ending. Yeah. So, but the soundtrack is incredible. That is one of my favorite soundtracks of A.R. Rahman. So
he's just got this great combination of the percussion that is really drives it forward, but then also this gorgeous sweep over it of the melody. Yeah, I mean, it's and this is definitely, I'm always fascinated that there are some Indian films that are, to me, more progressive about women than even American films, because I did a podcast episode on this about the film Ye Dilagi with Akshay Kumar, Kajol, and Saif Ali Khan, and
I'm
it's
not
a
sure
remake.
if I've seen that one. Yeah.
Oh, you should see it. It's so good. And it's a remake of Sabrina.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've seen the film Sabrina.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's like Sabrina. It's a remake of Sabrina. Only the Sabrina character Kajol is so much feistier and, again, much more empowered. Like, she's not just being knocked back and forth between these two men. She's actually making affirmative choices in her life about what she wants to do. She pursues a career. She rejects being treated as a possession by these brothers. She, it's really well done. And like I said, it's kind of like, wow, it's a story that's been told in Hollywood, but it's actually more progressive. The characters are more interesting, and there's more depth to the story. So it's always a pleasure to see that. Because unfortunately, as you know, Westerners can have these really negative attitudes towards Indian films and treat them as if they're less sophisticated, or the characters aren't as complex or whatever, and it's not true at all.
Yeah.
And
well, and also, I mean, the length of a film like this, it gives time for these characters to breathe and develop, and it just, I mean, it is, like you say, look at how they've taken what's been adapted as a 2-hour film, and they've expanded a little bit more. Yeah, there's time for the songs, but the songs, I think, enhance the emotions of those moments in the film, right?
Oh, totally. It's so funny because I think Americans have really lost the ability to watch musicals, because I read some reviews on IMDb about it, after I watched the movie, and they were almost all positive, but a few people complained about the songs. You're going along and then the narrative grinds to a halt because of the song. And what are you talking about? Have you never seen a classic Hollywood film? I mean, it's a musical.
Yeah.
Or people will say, I didn't know what was supposed to be happening. Suddenly they were in Egypt and I got confused. And I'm like, really? You don't understand a fantasy song? That's not something foreign to Hollywood narratives. Or at least it used to not be, back in the 40s and 50s.
Right.
So, anyway, that stuff confuses me. But, yeah, like I said, though, I think I just got a huge kick out of this film. It's such a pleasure. It's sort of almost like Shakespeare, there's so many different retellings of the story, and you know the plot, but the pleasure comes in how the different interpretations come out.
Yes.
And there's a story that I'm so familiar with, and to see how they changed it for the better, in my opinion, it was great.
Wow, I'm still blown away that you watched it 3 times this week. That's amazing.
It's so crazy. I know. It was exactly what I needed to, because we're still in quarantine.
Yeah.
At least in California, we're still pretty locked down. and everybody's going through this. It's been very difficult, and so to find a wonderful classic, I mean, because it's a 20-year-old film, so I think we can say it's a classic film. That was this wonderful gem that I didn't know existed, and that's just like kind of pure joy that was brought to me right now. So it was very nice.
Yeah, I mean,
it made me really happy.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a film with I don't know. I mean, it's light, but it also has that emotional quotient. I mean, it's not like it's a dark film about terrorism or partition or something like that, right? I was just like, okay, this, you're right. I felt like this is the film I want to watch right now too, because we're still in quarantine. This is going on 3 months, and it's hard. And this film is just what I needed this week too, to kind of transport me away and see these wonderful actors. And I'm like, I've seen a lot of Ajith's recent films, and this is making me hungry to see more of his earlier romantic films. He's a big action star now. I mean, he does emotion. There's always a romantic quotient, whatever action film he does. But it's funny because I think when I had seen one of his recent films, I didn't connect immediately, because he has gray. He's one of the few that goes gray in his films, and he's silver fox. but I didn't immediately connect. Oh, this is that guy from Kandukondain, like the guy with Tabu, because I had seen this film so early on that I didn't initially make the connection.
Yeah, no, totally. And I went and Googled him, because this is the only film of his I've seen, but I discovered that he played the Amitabh Bachchan role in the Tamil redo of English of English. So the scene on the airplane when Amitabh helps out? Yeah. They did it in the Tamil version. It's Ajith, and I was shocked, because I was like, first of all, I didn't know what a Tamil version of the film existed, and I was really surprised by that. And it was just interesting to see how he played it. But then I thought, well, wow, he must be huge, because the whole point of having Amitabh in that scene is that his stature is so big that it's kind of funny that he's playing the mentor to Sridevi. So to have Ajith do that part, he must be a big deal. So yeah, I'm interested in seeing. Because I thought he was really great. I mean, I thought his performance was great. And yeah, so I'm definitely interested in seeing. And I'm interested in seeing more of everybody. Mammootty was amazing.
Mammootty and Mohanlal they're of similar generation. So that's Mammootty is Dulquer's father. So you know that, right?
I didn't know that. Isn't that hilarious? I know nothing. So thank you for telling me that.
So when I first started watching Dulquer films, that was the funny thing, that I had no idea that he was a star kid. Because Mammootty is so big, he's just one name. He's just Mammootty, right? And the same way, Mohanlal is just Mohanlal. Just one name is all you need. But yeah, I did not realize that Dulquer was a star kid that basically got his first, beginnings, because so the recent film that Dulquer was in had 2 big stars, Shobana and Suresh Gopi. The Suresh Gopi character, so this is a film that just came out a couple months ago, Varane of Ashamand, was basically modeled on Mammootty's character in this film. So that was another fun little trivia thing. But yeah, Mammootty, I think he's 68 now, but he still does several films a year. He had an incredible year this last year. He did this, he also crosses industries. He had a Telugu film, a Tamil film, and several Malayalam films. But in my top 5 Tamil films of last year, he did this film called Peranba, which means resurrection. And he played a father of a teenage daughter with severe cerebral palsy. And it was kind of almost an art film, what was amazing to me is that it was evidently very popular, because this is a film that dealt with, so imagine Mammootty's playing a father who had been living in the Gulf and sending back money, and he comes home and his wife has fled, and suddenly he has to care for this daughter that doesn't know him. And there's a scene where he's trying to kind of contort himself to feel what his daughter must feel like. And he's having to deal with her period that's in the film, with her sexual frustration. Like, it goes places. Wow. Yeah, it's an incredible film. So it's Parenbo with BU at the end. It may be on Amazon Prime or something, but it's kind of some of the best acting I've ever seen him done. That was just in the last year, so he is still going strong. One of the big forces in the industry. Now, I have to admit, like, between the two, I'm kind of like a Mohanlal fan, but both of them have made hundreds of films, and they've acted in films together, but they cross over. So, like this film, I guess Mammootty was a little nervous about dubbing for himself in Tamil, but he did. But, and then, like, the Telugu film that he did, I think he dubbed for himself in that. So, it's the way that they can cross languages, it's incredible to me how they can act in different industries. Because here, Tabu and Ashwairya are not trying, you can see that lips don't always match up, because they're not native speakers. So, but it's good enough, and they give all of that emotion. And then you have Revati, saying the words for Tabu. So, yeah.
And it's interesting because it was the 20th anniversary of the film recently. And I read an interview with the director, and they asked him, well, do you think it matters if the actress or the actor can speak a language or not? He basically was like, no. He says it doesn't matter. It's about casting for, do they fulfill the part, and then we can just deal with the voice. Like, he didn't consider the voice to be the really important part, which is so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
It's such a different perspective than we're used to.
Yeah.
When you have sync sound in Hollywood versus a dubbed. And the thing, and I don't know Tabu's voice or Ashwarya's voice well enough to be able to be like, that's not them talking. Like, it isn't like what's her name, Rani Mukherjee in her first film was dubbed, and it was super obvious because she has a very distinctive voice, so like it sounds totally different. It wasn't that, I didn't feel that jarring difference.
Yeah, I know them enough to know the difference, but yeah, Tabu has had a very interesting career. I don't know if you ever seen Hater yet with Shahid Kapoor. That's the Hamlet adaptation, and she is incredible. She's incredible, and that one is one of her signature performances for me.
Yeah, I really want to see more, because I did see Andadhun, which I'm mangling the name, but it's the one with Ayushmann. Andadhun, whatever. Anyway, sorry, apologies, but with which is obviously a completely different part, and she was phenomenal in that movie.
Yeah.
And I saw the Namesake, which is a Hollywood film, but it's with Irfan Khan, and oh my God, the two of them in that film together. And I didn't like the film that much, which we could have another episode about my problems with that movie. But their performances were unreal. She was so, like, literally like one eyebrow and her shoulder, and just like tell you volumes. And it's a totally different character too. Her versatility is amazing. Yeah. She's kind of like a female Irfan, if you think about it.
Yes,
I
agree with you. I do agree with you on that. She has done all different kinds of films, and she can do comedy, like Underdone, which there were some very funny scenes in that.
Yeah, and when they're getting the body out of the apartment, that was amazing.
Yeah,
and she also,
her upcoming film, we've only seen a still, but she's going to play the courtesan character in A Suitable Boy, opposite Ishan. And just seeing that, I'm like, oh, I'm in the middle of trying to read this enormous book. I sent Alisa a picture of how enormous this book is.
Oh my gosh.
1,500 pages. Like.
It's a murder weapon, not a book. But I'm looking forward to that one too. Because that's the thing too, because she's still gorgeous, and she still radiates like sexual energy, and you could totally like see her seducing a man 20 years younger than her easily, right? And so, that'll be great. But speaking of Irfan, though, I found out that they were thinking of doing a Hindi remake of this film with him as Captain Bala, but that didn't happen. And I'm like, ah!
I know. I
That
know.
would have been amazing. I mean, not that, not that Mammootty's performance isn't phenomenal too, but can you imagine what Irfan would have done with that role? It would have been off the
Yeah, it was supposed
chain.
to
It would have
be.
been
It was supposed to
incredible.
be a Sanjay Leela Bhansali film.
Yeah,
Like, oh my god, I don't.
I
I
know.
didn't. I don't know who else they were thinking of casting, but yeah, just the idea of him playing. Yeah, what a
Would have been.
loss.
I know, and yet
It's
another
like
thing
there's so
that
many. I mean, there's so many might have beens. I mean, there's a lot of
yeah,
films that Irfan turned down that other people would have never imagined turning down because he wanted to do the projects that he wanted to do. Like he turned
yeah,
down The Martian to make The Lunchbox, which was the right choice for
right,
him,
right,
right?
right. Yeah,
There's so many things. I mean, he just went with what he wanted to make, and you
yeah,
have to respect
yeah,
that too. So,
yeah, yeah.
oh gosh, well, I am so glad that you love this film as much as I do.
I'm
So,
glad too. It was
I
really
mean,
fun.
yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's not that we're done watching all the Hindi classics that we want to watch, but there's just such a rich tapestry of film all over India. It's overwhelming. But I had mentors pointing me to films like this, and I'm glad to lift your spirits this week of quarantine with just an exceptional romantic film. All right, thanks everybody for joining us. Alisa, let everybody know where they can find you on Twitter.
I am at Bollywood Newbie, so at symbol Bollywood NEWBIE.
And you can find me at Pardesi YT. And subscribe here to the Pardesi channel. And I hope I will have Alisa back again. And maybe a better Mahesh movie or something else. We'll figure it out. But I would love to have another conversation with you again because these have been fantastic. And I love revisiting some of these films too that I have seen so long ago. And now, you can see so many layers in them that I didn't appreciate the first time I watched them early on in my watching history. So it's fun just to revisit them again with new eyes. So
Yeah.
anyway, thanks again.